Good afternoon. I'm Carl Garth, and welcome to this week's Champion Chat with Counsellor Alison Champion. Good
Hi,
afternoon.
Carl.
How are you today?
I'm fabulous, Carl. Happy to be here. How about you?
Oh, look, absolutely flying today.
That's good.
2 weeks off, sunny Queensland. Look forward to
Nice. Very exciting.
it.
Got to be warmer than here.
Oh,
Mm.
yes, yes. Although spring is now here. Spring has sprung.
Well, it depends whether you're a pagan or a Christian. If you're a pagan, it's not quite there yet. It's the 22nd of September. So we still have 3 weeks.
Okay.
Take your pick.
Well, being a bit of a sun worshipper, I'll put myself in the pagan basket. So today, Alison, we'll be talking about Banyule Youth Services and the work they do to ensure young people's voices are represented, and the issues that are important to them, how they've been discussed, what opportunities for action have been provided. And in particular, I'd really like to discuss a number of the topics that Banyule Youth highlighted in last year in 2021's Banyule Council Youth Summit. So let's dive right in. Alison, and one of the things, youth empowerment and social inclusion of youth as a voice in society planning, it's a bit of a relatively new concept, really. Us Gen Xers, we were sort of brought up with the seen but not heard mentality from our baby boomer parents. But that has definitely changed as we've moved into the new millennium.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. We grew up with the children should be seen and not heard. And another one, why aren't you at school? That's another one I remember.
Yes.
And then look, I think we're very blessed in that that concept, that social concept, has gradually changed over, as we've grown up, and then the next generation has come through. They're a much more vocal group, and want other people to know where they're coming from.
And I would say a lot more aware of actually what's happening in the world and around them.
Yeah, and they want to contribute, and they want to contribute, and they don't want to just tag along and be told what to do. But the thing is, it's not being told what to do in a rebellious kind of way. It's just that children should be seen and not heard concept doesn't work.
Participation's big for them.
Yeah. So we find that many of our youth, and I always say how much I love our youth. They're fantastic. So many of them want to contribute, have ideas, want to see the ideas fulfilled, and ask for assistance. How can council assist, or how can my school assist, or what else is there that can help us achieve this, which actually benefits a lot more people than just us. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And look, that's I think that's something with Banyule City that's not in maybe a lot of other local government areas, is that every 2 years they're running the Youth Summit. Now that's a pretty big thing. I was just wondering, could you give us a little bit of background and history about the Youth Summit, where the idea came from, and the driving forces behind its formation?
Yeah, I can do that. So it was created around sort of 10, 12 kind of years ago. So probably about three terms ago. Was an initiative from one of our former councillors, who was also in Parliament. And there's a group or a section of Parliament called Youth Parliament. So he knew about that, and he brought that idea to council. And what our youth were finding is that they would, in the early stages, they would attend meetings. There would be like a youth council created, and they were asked questions, and they provided answers, and there were surveys, and they provided responses to surveys. But what was lacking was the lack of follow-up,
right?
And really the lack of accountability. So there was the have a chat.
No follow through at all.
There was no follow through, and that, and so their ideas and wants were not coming to fruition.
Okay.
Yeah, which defeats, defeats the purpose of the exercise, and is actually a waste of time all round.
Yes.
So the Youth Summit was created for Banyule, which actually allows, it's kind of a big workshop, you could call it. So it's set up in such a way, there are several round tables in the room. It is usually held at the Heidelberg Golf Club. So there are several round tables in the room. There are about 8 people, youth mainly, at a table. And there are topics or themes that are covered, and youth write down what they'd like to see in relation to that topic or theme. And what that actually does is that creates a basic program, if you like, or agenda for our officers in the Banyule Youth Services to go away and go, right, they would like us, the youth would like us to, you know, make this happen, something like this happen with them. And so then over the following, you know, 12 months or so, those happen. They go into place, and things, you know, magic happens. Things are created.
Okay.
And so that's what that happens. And then there's obviously the reporting back. So we report back. So that was done 4 weeks ago. Yeah, beginning of August, we had we had the report card. So that was the bit that was missing, you know, for our youth. So that's reported back to the community, to council, and so that we can see, yes, this is working, yes, there are results, and so therefore that allows for the Youth Summit to go ahead again, because obviously it does come back to us as a concept to vote on.
Okay, so that what that's telling me is that Banyule Youth Services, whilst funded by the council, operates at bringing forward the youth agenda, not necessarily an agenda driven by council, and where it's got a level of independence.
Correct. Yeah, correct. It's driven by the youth, and it's not just a connection with council. There's also the connection with schools and other youth groups. Yeah. And
that's both public and private schools.
So, you know, principals get involved, teachers get involved. Yeah.
Okay. So, Alison, look, obviously we've just come out of 2 years of COVID lockdowns and restrictions through the pandemic. That's got to have had a big impact. So, noting the impacts that would have had on the youth summits, etc., what was Banyule City able to do in this time period to maintain that youth voice?
Yeah, so like a lot of industries, this went online. So Banyule Youth Services just sort of kicked into, right, how do we continue connecting with our youth as best we can? So the Banyule Youth Services connected through the website, so there was information there. Again, engaged online through the online meetings. They continue to provide things like the group activities and the individual support. And it got to the point where there was a division into sort of 2 age groups. So youth is sort of 12 years old through to about 25 years old. That's youth. And then we've got obviously there's an older, like sort of 18 to 25 is the older, and then you've got the genuine teenagers as the younger set. But there were a lot of people who wanted to be involved online, so that it ended up being divided into 2 age groups, and you know, our officers were able to connect online through those 2 different groups, and things like you know, the events, the activities that the youth do were still able to be done online, like music, art. You know what, there was a healthy home life portal as well, you know, an opportunity to talk about what's going on for people at home, and how this is impacting them as well, and how to manage that. And there was also content that was developed for school delivery. So our officers assisted sort of schools, the teachers, with how to work with our youth at school.
Okay. And I would assume that some of the more personal type services, support forums, they would have been able to have happened over Zoom.
Yeah. It's same in a lot of other industries that have, you know, managed to forge forward over the last, you know, 2021 and 2020. We just went online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, Alison, and one of the things here is that it's important, I think, we realise social inclusion is good for all segments of society to be able to have a voice and be involved. Why is it that a youth voice is really so important to be included for sustainable development?
Well, it's a whole generation. It's like I said, 13 to 25 years. That's a whole generation of people.
It is.
And it's large. So that's a whole generation that actually genuinely wants to contribute and sees the world in a way that is different from we do as an adult. And again, there are different generations of adults, obviously. Yep. And as we get older, we become more experienced, we have knowledge. There are people who say, you know, we become a little bit more cynical, a little bit more negative. Whereas our youth, and I notice this about a lot of our youth, they're enthusiastic and they're go-getters and they're like, yep, we can do this. How do we go about doing this? So we mentioned, you know, children should be seen and not heard. That's gone. There's none of that anymore. So adults think differently just through experience and age. And so the youth era becomes different from our youth era as middle-aged people is different from the current youth era. Yeah. So, and I think there's one thing like tech has a lot to do with that, but there are other aspects as well. And this is where, you know, people like our generation as middle-aged people, and then the next generation up as, you know, the grandparents, for example, you know, when I was your age, we didn't have this when we were growing up. So, you know, remember that when I was your age, we didn't have electricity. You know? And I actually flipped that a little bit now. As I said, tech is really quite, to me, it's quite complex. And look, I'm impatient. And if I can't do something, I'll just go, you know what? I don't have this time. And I go, you're a young person. You'll know, how do I do this? So that's one of the things that I come up with. Or, you know, if you've got like my boys, they'll go, oh my God, Mum, you have no idea. Here, let me do it. I'll just do it. So all it is we just take our age knowledge or our generational experiences with us. We just keep going through life. And sometimes we just forget what it is to be a teenager. Not so much when I was a teenager, this is what it was like. It's just thinking as a teenager, thinking as a really enthusiastic person, we kind of forget a little bit. We become a little bit jaded. And the other thing is sometimes we don't actually care to know what it's like in the world of a young person. Or do you know what? Even in the world of an older person. we just don't care to want to know what's going on in that age group. And so we inadvertently lack a bit of empathy.
That can happen.
And
maybe not the words we don't care, but it's less of a priority for us.
Okay, yeah, that's a really polite way of saying it. Yeah, absolutely, it's less of a priority, and sometimes we just don't realise. That's
exactly right.
Yeah, so it's really important to have, and we obviously have our age-friendly committee as well. I've been on that, and you get thoughts from and ideas what it's like from an older person, and then so we've got our youth as well, and that they just sort of they have enthusiasm and interest, and yeah, it's just brilliant, and we're there for support.
So for some of the older people out there who might be, as we said, a little bit wrapped up in what's happening with them, and maybe not so prioritising other segments, how can they empower today's youth to be agents of change?
Same as you empower anyone, you listen. Listen, include, work with them, negotiate. What if? Ask, what if this, then that, and just allow them to be creative, and and hear their vision and go, okay, I can hopefully, okay, I can see that. Now, how do I, as someone in Banyule Youth Services, or how do I as a counsellor help you get to that? What do we do? And do we need someone else? Do we need something else to assist for that? And more importantly, how does your vision help others?
So essentially where you're coming down to as adults, as parents, as managers in the workplace, we really should be looking to mentor and guide. Allow them that freedom to, you know, try and make their vision a reality. If they make a mistake, don't let them be discouraged by it. Let them learn from it.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And you know what? It's not like, and just nothing, it's not that nothing is wrong. Okay. So things, you'll stumble, you know, you hit a speed hump, you all over, something doesn't work, someone doesn't call you back. You know, it does lead to disappointment. And you go, okay, well, that's a learning curve. That's didn't work. What about this? How about we try that? Who else is around? Okay, that person's not responding. That organization's not responding. Okay, not a problem. Where else can we go? Got a problem. How do we solve it?
What was the very famous line that was sort of given to Thomas Edison was people said, you know, he failed 1,000 times to create a light bulb, and his answer was something along the lines of, no, I learned 1,000 ways on how not to create a light bulb.
That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah. So the perception is you're actually successful no matter what you do.
Yeah. Alison, what is the importance around future collective action on the issue of youth empowerment? Now, we've talked about individuals. Okay. Now, what about the collective?
What's the importance of it? Well, it allows the generation to create the world that they would like to live in or they would like to see. And they're not conforming, they're not being expected to conform to the adult world. And the adult world comes from, as I said earlier, you get older, you get more experience, which is great. But then there's that little bit of cynicism that starts to kick in as a result of, you know, an adult world. And rather than the perception of, as you say, there are many, many ways to not do this. Here's the way we do it, that it can be done. So what they want to create is not always on the same page as an adult or an older adult.
But that may also lead to them not falling into sometimes the same traps we do of just repeating the same thing over and over again.
Absolutely, which is exactly why we need to hear their voice. They may come from another area, another angle, different space. So, you know, allowing them to bring their shorter world into the conversation. So they've got their visions. They just need some empathy. They need some guidance, mentoring, as you said. There's the expression mental health and mental well-being is just thrown around now. We're always talking about it. You know what? It hasn't gone away. It's always been there. It's always been something that we have to manage as human beings. They're just now, we're just very aware of it and we're talking about it a lot more. So those things like mental health issues. Tell
me a little bit about the Freezer program.
Yeah. The Freezer program, so this is a youth development program, all right, and it provides opportunities for young people in Victoria across metropolitan, regional, rural, so all across Victoria, doesn't matter where you live. They can access live music events, any other cultural activities, recreational activities, artistic things, artistic events, music events. And all these events and activities are drug, alcohol, smoke-free environments. and they are supervised, and they
Sounds
are
like the old blue light disco.
Oh yeah, I remember those. So they're already safe. So the fundamental is they are created by youth, and they are safe, and they are supervised, and they're healthy. So they're alcohol free and smoke free, all right, and drug free, right? So I'm going to give you an example of an event that occurred in June.
Okay.
So the event that occurred in June that was created by, it was an idea from our local LGBTIQA plus youth. They wanted a concert or a music event that celebrated the vast array of diversity of gender. And they wanted some authentic expression in this event. So they joined service. So they created the event sort of in their heads on paper, and came to Banyule Youth Services and said, oh, look, we'd love to do this. Can you help us out? And the same with Freezer. Okay, so joined up with Freezer and Banyule Youth Services. So that was held on the 25th of June. And you could, book tickets, come along. And we saw a video of that. It's actually on the website.
Yes, I did see that. Where was that held, by the way?
When?
Where?
Where? Oh, that's a really good question. I think it was held at Ilch, but I'm not 100%. So I'd have to double check that. I need to check that. So it was a theatre environment. Yeah. And it was great. The kids were having the best time. It was fantastic. And what was absolutely fascinating is that some of our residents either emailed us as counsellors, or emailed our officers, or, rang us up, or sent us messages, and just said, what are you guys doing? This is not appropriate for children. What are you doing?
Wow.
Yeah, it was fascinating, which kind of proves our point that we were talking about earlier. So they questioned our choice. They thought it was a Banyule Council event, created by Banyule Council for our young people, and they questioned our choice of activity. They thought it was not appropriate for children, and why on earth would we aim this at young people? And we just had to sort of advise them, well, no, that's our young people. That's what they want. Yeah. So we're happy to help them.
Okay.
It was great.
Bit of an eye-opener too, though.
Sorry?
Would have been a bit of an eye-opener for them that, this is what the community's saying they want.
That's exactly what it is. This is what our community is saying they want. This is a perfect example of our youth in this case, going, love it. Why do we do this? Let's do this. Where do we get help from to do this? And
it's no different to sporting clubs running a regional sports tournament.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep. No different. It's just another activity that young people want to be involved in, and can we support them?
So, Alison, hearing all this, I guess the thing and reading and researching a little bit more around Banyule Youth Services and what the council has done to support but not actually drive it. When I say drive an agenda through it, it really does seem to have adopted a view of that they don't just want to work for the young people, they're really looking to partner with them and actually look at what's impacting them. So they really have looked at themselves, looked at how they were previously working with them, and gone, and it's almost like they've asked themselves, what if we change this paradigm? What if we change the way we interact? And from what I can see, it's still obviously developing, even though it's been running for a number of years. You can see year on year there seems to be some real changes in this. What would you attribute the mindset of council now to the way youth services and why they've taken this, I guess, pathway that they have?
Life is easier when you share. And while council are leaders, community leaders in a space, and there's an expectation that leaders come up with ideas, it's better, it's easier, it's more collaborative. It's a happier place.
Yeah.
If everybody actually takes on responsibility and feels welcome to present their ideas.
Yeah, you will get better buy-in, obviously.
You get better buy-in. That's exactly it. You get better buy-in. And you know, as a middle-aged person, quite frankly, I don't know exactly everything that a 20-year-old wants or a 15-year-old wants, even though my boys are that kind of age.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Not really. Can't remember. It was a bit different when we were younger. It's different now. So in any group, in any organization, if everybody can contribute with their ideas and their networks and, I don't know, their funds, their whatever, we all contribute, we're all stakeholders.
Yep.
To create something for a lot more people, why wouldn't you do it?
That's good.
Why wouldn't you do it? And look, there are, you know, this is where I certainly encourage my residents, I encourage Banyule residents to contribute to whatever it happens to be. Look, it could be a pothole in the road. No worries, that's great. I missed it. Send me a photo and we'll get that fixed. Great.
But it's a big leap of faith to take that when you consider that you will get some people ringing up, like you had with the concert that was run.
Yeah.
Questioning the motives behind it.
Correct.
So yeah, it's quite a big leap of faith by the council to feel that the outcome we can see is going to be worth any sort of pain we go through.
And you know what? It's interesting you use the word pain. We already know not everyone's going to contribute. Not everyone's going to be happy. Not everyone's going to get this. And that's okay. Because everyone brings their own world to the table. And look, you know what? I make suggestions to my residents and they'll just go, no, I'm not going to do that. I just go, okay, that's okay. How are you going to create the outcome that you want if you're not going to contribute? Yeah. So, and there, you know what? There are actually only a small number of people who think that way. So it's the minority. Yeah. And there will be people who will be upset, who will be offended, who won't like it. And that's absolutely fine. Be upset, be offended, don't like it. That's okay. This group of people want this. We can help them. It contributes to their lives. It's a positive experience. It allows for something else that's great. We don't know what that looks like yet, but I'm sure it'll be great. That's the priority. Yeah. Okay. And I must say, having, again, like I said, I did go through the materials from last year's and it was just amazing and to see the topics that were covered. Yeah. Not only were they varied, but the far-reaching impacts of them, you know, topics, they weren't just looking at environment, they were looking at things with racism, gender equality, cultural diversity, inclusion, mental health, LGBTIQA+. You know, and I think the fact that many of the recommendations that actually came out of that youth summit, and the fact they've actually now been acted on by council to implement via Banyule Youth Services, I mean, that must be hugely gratifying. Oh, it's fantastic. Because the other thing that is created with this for our young people is they become a lot more confident. They increase their networks. They get a greater understanding of how businesses function, how local government functions, restrictions, because there are restrictions, especially within a local government framework. There are restrictions. What are they? And they allow for innovation, you know, big thinking. And it allows for growth for everybody involved. Like, what's not to love? Well, and you know, for me, as a parent of a son with autism, I mean, I was really, really impressed with not only the discussion on autism and the recommendations, the things that youth services and council have put in place to allow
people with special needs and support people with special needs, both from a community, having places and hobbies and things that they can do, helping them get work. And just wondering if you'd like to talk about some of those a little bit more, because I know that around the work area.
Yeah. So as you said, we had a variety of projects that were being created by our youth. So I'll just let people know that, because I'm not sure that they're aware. So one of our youth wanted to recycle or repurpose woolen school clothes. So mostly the jumpers, woolen school clothes, which through Apparel, an organisation called Apparel. So that encourages avoiding waste, reduce, reuse, recycle. There's the Man Cave program, which was actually created by some Year 9 Greensborough College, 3 Year 9 Greensborough College boys. Like, how hard was Year 9?
And look, reading about that Man Cave, the mindset that they took into that was I just thought, wow, 14, 15-year-olds who are going, okay, how should, what is the right way that we should be getting supported, but what is the right way that we should be getting taught is the way to be in public or the way to be in society.
Correct.
That's fantastic thoughts from a 14 and 15-year-old.
I know, because we didn't have that. Well, I didn't anyway.
For us, it was trial and error.
Very much so. It was making up as you go along.
probably more error.
And we're okay. We've turned out okay, I reckon.
Yeah, well said.
But to have that at the time when you really need it, this program's great. So this is the Man Cave program. It encourages young men, teenagers, to connect through conversation and sharing their well-being. And when these 3 boys young men, I should say, came up and spoke at the report card a month ago, one of them was quite shy. He actually announced, look, I'm really not good with public speaking. A couple of them did, actually. There were a couple of, young lady and a young man. They said, look, I'm really not good with public speaking, so I'm just going to keep it brief. Not a problem. Not a problem. And you know what? They all spoke really well because we learned. That's it. We learned from them. There's an LGBTIQA plus teacher resource that was created, which assists all our educators with understanding some of the modern jargon and the modern needs and attitudes of teenagers and youth, and what's happening for them as well. There was an employment forum which was created for Somali Australian youth, and along with leadership, culture and wellbeing activities. And there are a lot of young men involved with that. Another thing that's created that I actually got a copy of, this is a good couple of years ago now. Do not judge this book. Oh, no. Is that backward? I don't know.
No, it was okay.
Do not judge this book by its cover. It looks backward to me. This is fantastic. This is available from Banyule Youth Services. And I was flicking through this again last night. And this is a book of poetry or artwork that is hoping that the reader is inspired to support young people to be accepted and celebrated for who they are, and to end outdated gender stereotypes that stop people from being themselves. That's the whole point of this. So a lot of youth have contributed to this. Artwork, poetry, prose, and what the world is like for them in their gender and whatever their gender is that they've chosen. Or live with, or they were born with, whichever. That is brilliant. That is fantastic. So they're just some of the things, that are available for people as well. Life Hacks is another one. I think I mentioned this last time. This is a fantastic book. This helps young people know things like how to open a bank account, how to save some money, how to catch a bus or a train, just the day-to-day stuff, even getting a loan. That sort of thing. So this is brilliant, and it is for young people, but you know what, as a parent, resource.
I know a number of people who still can't pay their bills.
Oh yeah,
They still go to the post office because how do I pay it online?
That's what they know. That's the tech thing that's challenged.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Speaking with you know, some of our network through BNI, one of the brokers, one of the mortgage brokers, you know, he's explaining to people who are in their 20s or 30s who are getting their first loan and buying their first home. He's having to explain to them some of the fine print and what they need to do. And he said, oh my God, this has to be taught in schools. Why don't people know this? You know, and the credit card, like a credit card actually impacts your loan, your ability to lend.
Yeah.
You know, why don't people know how to, you know, apply for a credit card or get rid of a credit card? That's the other way too.
Yeah.
So he's made a really good point. There's stuff that we use today that really needs to be taught in this age group. You know,
sometimes more than algebra, you need to know how to balance you know, your bank accounts and your ins and outs.
Yep. And so, you know what? Schooling is partway there. Like there is stuff that we do need to use. It's partway there. And there's just the practical angle of how to use maths or English or whatever. Yeah, or science. Yeah, there's just a little bit further we've got to go.
It was interesting for me when you're talking about one of the initiatives under the LGBTIQA plus in schools about jargon. It reminded me of a story about my mother. When she first got on Facebook, again, baby boomer, used to writing a lot of letters and communicating that way. And she had a friend, and the friend had a close family member pass away. And my mum wrote a very touching post on Facebook, but finished it with LOL, because when she used to write letters, LOL meant lots of love. Couldn't understand why her friend was not so happy with the post. And we had to explain to her that on Facebook, LOL does not mean lots of love. And that laugh out loud is not something you say to somebody who's grieving.
Wow. Oh.
So again, jargon changes.
It does.
So quickly. So it's amazing though, if you're not up to date with the jargon, it's very easy to say the wrong thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got to be careful of your emoji. Which we didn't have. We didn't have emoji.
Yes, don't scream at somebody with an emoji. Yeah. Oh, geez. Look, Alison, there's been so many initiatives that came out of the Youth Summit, just play favourites, but which one of those projects probably resonated the most with you, and which one would you feel, geez, you know, I'd really like to be part of that one?
Oh, I can't. I know there's no way. They were all fantastic. And it's, you know what? It's not even the project. It's not necessarily the project. It's the fact that we have a bunch of young people who've gone, this is missing.
Yep.
How do I contribute? How do I fill this space? How do I fill this gap? And so it's actually not the project itself.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is what I mean by the growth of the stakeholders in these projects, and certainly the youth who create these ideas. They found what's missing, required the support, needed the support to fill the hole. So if we take the apparel project here, the recycling or repurposing the woolen school clothes, this is just a young lady wanting to stop more clothes going to landfill. That's all she wanted to do. How do I stop more clothes going to landfill? How do I do my little bit? And our officers worked with her and connected with apparel. And we got to see, she presented to us a month ago.
She stopped, was it 200 or 300 jumpers ending up in landfill from memory?
Yep. And so we got to see photos of the warehouse, the apparel warehouse with the big boxes of the clothes, and they're being repurposed. Yeah.
So, Alison, you did talk a moment ago about the ongoing growth some of these. So it has me to ask then, how do you measure engagement or success of the actions? And by success, I mean, you know, how has it impacted the youth that proposed and changed what they were experiencing to what they are now?
Yeah, so the standard measures have been applied. So surveys, you know, a good 600 youth have been surveyed. They provided their feedback. any participants who've been in activities. We'll count the number of participants, how many projects have gone ahead, how many people have been involved. School participation is another one. We also look at, well, how many schools continue to come back and want to be involved in the Youth Summit. The fact that we had, officers had schools wanting their grade 6s. So that's like 11.
So they really bring them back. Yeah. Okay.
How do we get the grade 6s involved in this before they get to high school and go through what they're going through at high school? So it's all in the numbers. It comes back to the numbers and the actual contributions that people create, and how many people how many people are involved. The fact that we've had, so we went online during our COVID restrictions. The fact that our officers had to divide the group of youth into 2 age groups tells me that that's more than they expected, or more than have come in the last few years. So right there, it's the contribution and the ideas and the connections.
Okay. So look, Alison, something we touched on earlier, we mentioned was mental health. And obviously, look, that's something that has just really become a part of our consciousness with the stats during COVID and showing that teenagers aged 13 to 18 have been the most at risk. They count for 75% of interventions from December the 1st, 2020 to May the 31st, 2021. So within 18 months, the level of interventions needed for that age group have just exploded. So some of the things that are going from the summit recommendations, Banyule Youth Services implemented workshops addressing this. And so far, I understand that 3,000 young people have been able to attend these workshops. So what is the plan for the rest of the Banyule area? Because obviously this is something that's important. The schools in that things are actually happening and it appears to have been success.
Yeah. I'm going to just comment on the statistics that you've mentioned there, and then I'll answer your question.
Sure.
So that statistic is not surprising, quite frankly. And I watched a British documentary easily 15 years ago. I actually think it was something closer to 20 years ago. I was watching a British documentary on the human brain. And it was absolutely fascinating. And I got a few things from it, but one thing that really resonated with me is it was the explanation of how the brain works from like 12 years old through to about 18 years old. So they're the teenage years.
Yes.
And I still have a very clear visual of the electrical currents that were shown on the screen, on the television screen, the electrical currents and how they move as a primary aged or younger person, and how they move around and connect as an adult, so over 19 years old, and then what they were doing, what these electrical currents were doing in the teenage years. And the electrical currents, one end would shift away from the brain and just be floating around and then shift somewhere else in the brain. And then another electrical current would move away from one section of the brain and shift to another section. And there was a whole lot of electrical currents moving around, shifting around, very, very busy brain function. And I've realized, the teenage brain doesn't actually work.
Well, not the same way our adult one does. It's a lot more malleable. That neuroplasticity of making connections, as you say. Hang on, I connected here, but now I want to connect there because I've got. That's
right.
Our brains get a little bit old and set in stone.
That's it. That's the key difference. And so I've just, had a light bulb moment. I've gone, oh my God, now I get it. Now I get it. Now I understand why teenagers behave the way they do. It's actually not them. It's the brain malfunction. Yeah, or variation. And, there's always this talk, you've got to be careful or aware of, not only how you speak with a toddler and a baby, or, manage with them or work with them or live with them or encourage them or discourage them. You've also got to do it with a teenager, because what a teenager will take from their life in that time really, really becomes their world as an adult. And that's the impact, and the choices they make, what we do for them or contribute to them, and it can be a negative contribution, what we contribute to them as a teenager really makes their brains work a certain way, so that their world, they take it into the adult world, and as you say, becomes set in concrete. And for many, they don't change. As an adult, it doesn't change. So we've got to be so careful. So hearing your statistic, unfortunately, doesn't surprise me. And we just have to be so very, very careful about how we work with our teenagers. So, hats off to teenagers, hats off to teachers who teach in secondary schools.
Yep.
That's the time for many, many years that they're working with these brain changes. And I made a decision when I understood that. So Nikki was a baby, and I think Cricky hadn't even been born yet. So that just stayed with me, and I was going, oh my God, now I get it. And I'm just going to make sure that when my boys are teenagers, or when Nikki's a teenager, that I'm very conscious that, quite frankly, his brain doesn't work. And I will
see it that way.
And as a teenager, you don't see it that way. You don't see it that way. Your world is just a bit different.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now that I know that, I'm very grateful to that doctor for creating that program. I understand that it's really important to encourage teenagers and give them the support that they need and want, and get that they're really challenged at the moment. And the last couple of years probably hasn't helped. And then the climate action conversations probably aren't helping either. And we just really need to be realistic. Yeah. So we've actually had, so you're looking at around that 3,000 youth who have been involved in our workshops, which are actually available in every Banyule secondary school. All right. Now, like I said, some primary schools are requesting the wellbeing workshops or the resilience workshops for their grade 6 students.
Right.
And I know that certainly, look, as I said, my boys were at Monty South Primary School. I remember resilience being a key theme when they were there.
Geez, at grade 6, though, and earlier, you've got to start wondering, well, what pressures are we piling onto our children for them not to not feel like they can be children, that they need well-being and resilient workshops?
Yeah.
I digress a little bit.
No, that's okay, because that's that is a fair question. And look, there are a lot more families now that are divided. A lot of kids grow up in 2 households, potentially 3. Mine have 3. And it's actually better for them. It's actually a better place for them. They have a happier childhood with the 3 homes that they're living in. So that's something that didn't really happen much when we were that age, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, that it happened, but not as much. And there was probably a lot more unhappiness at home. So Banyule Youth Services actually provide the content and work with the schools on this. So very much a partnership with our schools and our officers. And look, I learned that they were rebooked a lot during lockdown.
Yeah.
There was a lot of rebooking going on, and, extending through to the older primary age kids, which was brilliant.
Okay. There was another thing that I did read, and I've seen some imagery on. Part of that mental health was to create a safe sharing place. And apparently they created a public art installation on the walkway near council offices. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Oh, yeah, the artwork. So this artwork, it's actually been there for well over 12 months now. So for those who don't know, on the Greensboro Walk, where the offices, both the Watermark entrance and the Banyule offices entrance is, there are really big planters, big metal planters with trees in them. dotted along the walk, and around the planters are our youth artwork that's been stuck to that. And there's a QR code on the artwork that you can open up, you show your phone and you open it up, and you can read about the artwork and the artist who created it, and a little bit about what their story is and what's going on for them. And it provides bright colour for the area against the grey. So what that does, that allows, it's another way that our youth can self-express. Can share their ideas and concepts with community in a very informal way, 24 hours a day. Good as
and it was also suggested that it was a bit of a safe place where people could go, maybe arrange to meet some people there and discuss any issues they might be having or thoughts or feelings they were having. If youth wanted to actually do that, where would they go to be able to arrange to meet people there?
You'd probably you'd go through Banyule Youth Services. They really are. So that's, of course, that's on our website. You can call council directly, 94904222, and ask to be put through to one of our youth officers, and they'll be able to assist there. So if you prefer the phone, you can do that, or you can go to our website and connect with Banyule Youth Services. Banyuleyouth.com is a really good site to go to.
Actually, and look, I've been on the site. I noticed they've got a fantastic function coming up, or a fantastic activity, YouthFest, from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday, the 11th of September. Can you tell me a little bit more about what's going to happen on that day, and especially with some of the activity variety on, and how interested parties could find out more? Absolutely.
Okay, so YouthFest is, again, it's an event that is created by youth for youth, and Banyule Youth Services supports that. Now, it is held every year, except the last two, at McLeod. So Birdwood Park in McLeod. Essentially, it's the big park space between Aberdeen Road and the train station. So that just fills up with a whole lot of activities. So this year, now I've got here, so there are things like there's painting, there are a great deal of workshops, sports activities, there are environmental activities. So that was one of the YouthFest actions as well that was taken.
That's right, yes.
Rides, all sorts of rides for all sorts of age groups, lots of free entertainment, and often that free entertainment is school bands. It's a great opportunity for our school bands to play. So that's just ongoing throughout the day. So the day starts at about midday, goes through till 5 p.m. I remember, and there are food trucks as well as the Aberdeen shops, the Aberdeen Road shops. So there's lots of places to get food and drink. I remember when I went there, must have been 3 years ago, was the last one I went to. And I remember going there, and we went because one of Nikki's friends was in a band. So we got to listen to them play, watch them play. And went with Cricky, and we found a whole lot of activities. And one of the activities was a rock climbing wall.
Which I believe they're going to have that as well as a skate park this year.
Yeah, a skate park in there too, So lots and lots of activities that are going on. So to find out a bit more, again, you can go to banyuleyouth.com. Again, on our website, there's information about YouthFest on the website, Instagram and Facebook, another couple of spaces to go to. So there's that. And if you don't want to do that, you can email your counsellor, and we'll find out more if you like, or we can give you the answers. But that's this coming Sunday.
Brilliant.
Sunday the 4th. No, it's not. Sunday the 11th.
Sunday the 11th, yes. That's next Sunday.
Not going back in time. We're not doing that. We're going forward. Keep moving forward. The 11th.
Absolutely, look, and Alison, we talked before about, as parents, talking with our children, and understandably, parents want to protect their children. And they don't realise that sometimes the children are actually also then trying to protect them. And so they worry them, and they don't always potentially tell them everything that's going on in their lives. because they don't want to worry their parents any more than what they're probably worried about today. And so for many parents, the question is, how do you bring up certain topics with your children?
Mm.
Look, if you could turn back time and talk to your 16 to 18-year-old self, what would you tell her around, about talking to her parents?
Mm. This took me a long time to think of what could have been possible. And for many youth, it is a lot easier, as you say, to just not say anything.
Mm.
You know what? You can argue, as you've done, because you don't want to hurt them, but you can also argue that I don't want to get in trouble.
True.
And I remember there were many times when I got in trouble and I was yelled at and I was smacked. Actually, today it would probably be called child abuse, but I was smacked. Because I made a choice that really suited me.
Yeah.
Didn't like my parents' choice, and I didn't take it. And you know what? I was absolutely okay with all of that. Coming back to your question really specifically, look, I couldn't think of anything worse than turning back time and being a 16-year-old.
It's a challenge.
I would never want to turn back time. I don't regret, and I'm grateful for everything that's ever happened to me, because you know what? Everything that's ever happened to me, I learned, is actually my choice.
Yeah.
Being as a result of my choice, and I'm responsible for it. So, but however, for the benefit of this exercise and to humour you, Carl.
So, Alison, I'm just going to, I'm glad you're going to humour me. So the question, that I'd almost want to ask there is, I came from a broken home, and I know that there were times that I could have really used some guidance on certain topics. And, it's interesting. So, yes, please humour me.
Yeah, okay. So you talk about a broken family. Look, mine was broken too, not through choice.
Yeah.
All right. So my father actually died when I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
My sister was 11, and he was only 54.
Yeah.
And so both Claire and I, my sister and I, were coming into our teenage years. There you go. Really hard time for all of us. At the time, it didn't occur to me. I was so far inside my own head, as one was inside my own head. I didn't think outside the box. I didn't think out here. I was just so far inside here. So what I would offer is that while you as a young person have your concerns, your anxieties, and your problems and your inadequacies and your fears, and there are times when you're inside your own head as well, your parents also have their anxieties, their problems, they've got their inadequacies, their fears, and they're managing their lives, and they're trying to work with yours as well, because they're also responsible for you too. Especially, being under the same roof in many cases. Their problems, in a way, are probably bigger, a bit different from yours, in that they've probably got a mortgage, or they've probably got rent to pay, and they're paying the bills. And so for your parents, I'd suggest that they not only have some personal anxieties or inadequacies that they're trying to manage. Yep. They're also managing financial issues. So they're working on they're working on their humanity and their ability to be a human being, what it is for them as a human being, as well as the reality of running a home and keeping a job. I say keeping a job, working in a job and putting food on the table. The reality is we're all human beings. If you take away the labels of who's a parent and who's a child and who's a neighbor and who's a leader and who's, take the labels away, we're all human beings. And it can be extremely hard having the conversations. But if we can just go, look, there's something going on for my parent, just accept that there's something going on for them.
Yeah.
And if it's really too hard to have the conversation, that's okay. It's absolutely fine. Perhaps just let them be.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. From my perspective, like I said, it would have been nice to be able to get some guidance on things. Growing up, there are a lot of things that put aside the things that I did wrong, or chose to do. I'm talking more about life lessons, and in the end, I guess because I didn't know how to go about those questions, ended up running away and joining the army at 17.
Because that was easier, wasn't it?
It was easier.
Yeah. Define wrong.
I didn't say anything about what either of us said was wrong. I'm just saying what I was doing. I sometimes wish that I had the courage to open up to either my mother or my father, or even maybe some other mentor, about how I was feeling and what was going through my mind. But I was probably a little bit more afraid of feeling judged than
correct. Yeah, that's a good one too. And the judgment, let's call it judgment because you've used that word. Let's go with the judgment comes from the world that they know. That's not the same world as you. Your world is different from theirs. So what was their world like? What did they grow up with? They, again, probably don't know anything different. And they are what they grew up with in their world. That's how you are as a parent. That's how my parent was to me. That therefore must be how you are as a parent. So I then do that for my children.
Yep.
And
although what I will say is, for the lessons that I have learned, I am one of the older generation now. I do have children, but it's there to be someone who does listen when they want to open up without judgment, be there to provide a level of either feedback or guidance without it having to be what I would do. Because as you say, my reality is completely different.
Yeah. And it's a case of accepting that or being okay with that. And that's why one of the options, this is one of the options, not all the options, but if it really is a very hard activity for you to have the conversation, or a young person to have the conversation with the parent, or even vice versa, that's okay. That's okay. It might just be you accept that there's something going on for them, and you may not have the jargon, the language, the confidence.
Absolutely.
To delve into that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You'd like to think though that your parent actually has a network, and that's what's really important, is to have the network.
Yeah.
Have the network. But as a teenager, I remember how life was when I was growing up as a teenager, and going through not only watching that documentary on the brain, the human brain, but also going through my own personal transformations and creating a different world for myself, and knowing or learning to be a different human being.
Yeah.
That has allowed for me to not do or not treat my boys in the way that in the household that I was growing up in. Now, just make it clear, I didn't grow up in a household that was full of domestic violence.
No.
Or, you know, it was a single parent family,
Mm-hmm.
lot of choice. Okay, just make that clear. So I've got a parent who has to return to work after 15 years of not being in the workplace and has to reskill and, you know, go back into the industry and get another qualification and then go back into the field. And the industry had changed from the 60s to the 80s.
Oh, look, absolutely. And you're right, we are shaped by our experiences. Whether we choose to, if we've experienced something, whether we choose to follow that or whether we choose to go 180 degrees because we think there might have been a way to do things. Again, a choice is something that we consciously go, yes, I've been through that. I think I want to try this.
Yeah. And this may be a different option or a better option for my children, for example. And look, the thing is, what I do that's different now, that I think is different. My boys are old enough, but it can be done. This can be done with primary age children, using language and really have them think about a choice that they're making, and talk about it. Okay, so if you choose that, how are you going to make it happen? And how does that impact everybody else in the family? You know, it's like, oh, Mum, can I go to a party? And how are you going to get there? And how are you going to get home?
Well, I think every youth is a walking bundle of questions, and the core, I think, really are: who am I? Where do I fit in? What differences can I make? And so, Alison, look, in Banyule who may be asking themselves these questions, where can they go to find help or like-minded people in the Banyule city areas?
Yeah. So again, I keep talking about Banyule Youth Services. Banyule Youth Services is a group of young people, young adults, and slightly older adults as well. So, you know, even people our age, Carl, who connect really well with youth. And they can connect youth with others whom the youth may not know. So there's networking. There's a lot of networking going on. Do you know what? I would also honestly recommend a local sporting club. So if you're, now this is where you choose to play sport outside school. So you've got your local sporting clubs, and what a lot of our volunteers in our sporting clubs are, they end up being role models and sometimes surrogate parents. They don't mean to be, it's just, you know, inadvertently.
It happens.
They are. It happens. Just because the
I think you can add taxi driver into that as well.
Yeah, you can bring that in too. Yes, there is that. That's the, and how are you going to get there? And how are you getting home? And so our adult volunteers in those are their coaches, their team managers, they're the older players. You know, sometimes senior and junior teams play together, they blend. So we do have adult connections in our local sporting clubs. Maybe that's someone to connect with. And what I noticed with our sporting clubs, you know, they have their club rooms, they have kitchens, and you know, there's a roster, and there's food that's provided, and it needs to be paid for, but there's food that's provided, there are drinks that are provided. And do you know what I've seen and I've worked out? You can spend a lot of your evening after training, or a lot of your Saturday or Sunday around training and games at the club.
I did when I was growing up.
Okay, I didn't. So you know what? I'm learning that through my boys. I'm learning that. And there's such a beautiful connection with our clubs, within our clubs and with our clubs, around our clubs. There's a lot of care there, and our volunteers, you know, there are conversations that I'm in where, you know, our adult volunteers, our coaches, our team managers, etc., they're going, oh, Alison, we're thinking about doing this. What do you reckon? Oh, great idea. There's another club looking to do that. How about I put you together? and you guys have a chat, and we'll get you together with an officer, and we'll make something happen. You know, so, and this is, yeah, so our youth services can be involved there as well.
Yep. So I guess really the main point you're trying to get there is youth services, there are adult mentors. Reach out. There are people there to listen, help, guide, support, whatever.
Yep, there are, absolutely there are, and they want to.
And just to reiterate that the website was banyuleyouth.com.
Yeah, banyuleyouth.com is that website. Obviously, you can also go to the Banyule website as well, straight Banyule, and just look up youth services. You can always do that as well.
Yep.
So they're the two websites, Instagram, Facebook. And look, if you get stuck and you want to call any of the counsellors, we can also connect you with officers.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time today, Alison.
Thank you, Carl. It was good.
It was, wasn't it? We really went down some rabbit holes today.
Yep, we did. So just a little reminder there, the Banyule banner's coming out this week. This is the September Banyule banner.
Yes.
YouthFest is on the front. We've got YouthFest on the front. So, yep, please, just a reminder, this coming Sunday, the 11th, between 12 and 5, there's a wrap around the banner. And I must say this, nothing to do with youth, but this is something that's really important at the moment. Northeast Link is the initial works are under construction. Okay.
Yes.
They're being done at the moment, and the actual final design is still in a conversation. And we really want our community to be in this conversation. This is a really important conversation. So when you get your banner, this is the wrap on it. We're asking, we've got a little promo going, put a lid on it. We want your feedback about which design will work for Banyule. And we already know what the answer is. We just need you as the community to please be a voice. Be a voice for a better looking Banyule. Okay. So that's what your banner is going to look like when it comes through today. Today, later this week, if you haven't got it already. There you go. All right.
Wonderful.
Oh.
Nice little plug there, Alison.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. All right. Well, look, again, thank you. And thank you all for listening to this podcast today. Join us next time on the Champion Chat for our next podcast, To Be Advised.
Yes. Look forward to seeing everyone then.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alison.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.